What's up, everybody? Anthony here from Highlander Games, and I'm with one of my favorite customers, Wade. He always puts together the goofiest commander decks, and he somehow almost wins every single weekend. He had that one deck that was in a rubber band that we would run under the faucet.
Oh yes, for Skullbriar deck.
Fantastic. This deck is a lot better than that deck. Today, he's going to tell you guys all about his Oloro deck.
All right, everybody, my name is Wade, and I choose to use Oloro for this deck, and pretty soon you are going to see the reason why I chose Oloro. If you do not know what Oloro does, Oloro sits in your command zone, and he does absolutely nothing but gain you 2 life. You never cast Oloro, he sits on his chair, and he stares at everybody while they hate him. But anyhow, I built this deck around Lich Effects. There are 3 Lich Effects. I'm going to show them to you right now. Original Lich, 4 black, was last printed at Unlimited. It is on the reserve list. You lose all your life when this comes onto the battlefield. Whenever you gain life, you will draw a card. Whenever you lose life, you have to sacrifice one of your permanents. If you cannot sacrifice a permanent or you sacrifice the Lich, you lose the game. With Nefarious Lich, it has the same gain life, draw cards clause, except you have to exile cards for your graveyard for every time you lose a life. This is probably the scariest one to have on the battlefield. And the last one, the one most people are familiar with because it was just printed, is Lich's Mastery. It has hexproof. It does not bring you to 0 life. You still draw cards every time you gain life. You get to gain the life. For every life you lose, you exile a card from your hand, you exile a card from the graveyard, or you sacrifice and exile one of your permanents. If Lich's Mastery leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. Now, these are all very scary effects, and the reason they're scary is because you can literally die to a Cyclonic Rift. Anything that mass wipes out enchantments will take you out of the game. It will not just blow up your enchantments, it will die. But they also have high upside, and that's why I am building this deck. Okay, so I have the usual card draw ramp. There are cards in here that are specifically very good with these Lich Effects. Notion Thief is a staple in blue-black decks. It will put a lot more cards in your hand, so if you take damage with, say, your Lich's Mastery out, you have more cards in your hand to exile to keep you alive and end the game. Baleful Strix will draw you a card on entry and will also block one of your opponent's biggest creatures because they will be coming after you if they see a Lich in play. Echo of Eons is very important because it will give you 2 chances to shuffle your graveyard back into your library in case something happens to one of your liches. It gets milled, it gets countered, you need it back on the field, you need a way to get your graveyard back into your library. Echo of Eons is the best way to do this. Now, you need to keep creatures off of your back because, like I said, once people see a Lich effect in play, if they can't remove the Lich, they're going to want to remove you. And so we do run a number of board wipes. We run some spot removal in here, but mostly we're focusing on the board wipes because we don't just want to hit one creature and take it out. We want to hit all the creatures so nothing can hit us. Another way we get rid of creatures, Humility. Humility is another card, kind of like Oloro, that nobody likes. But it turns all your creatures into 1/1, so instead of getting hit with a big 12/12 flying dragon or angel, you're going to get hit with a 1/1, and you can just sacrifice one thing, exile one thing from your graveyard. We do run one very mean stack slot in the deck. It involves Smothering Tithe. Once again, and this seems to be a theme with this deck, another card everybody hates. Every time somebody draws a card, if they do not pay 2 colorless, you get a treasure token. We combine this with Stasis. And the idea is, goes around the table, nobody can untap, so nobody can pay Smothering Tithe. You get 3 treasures every round at a board. You sack one to pay for the stasis, keep it around. You still get to play Magic. Nobody else does. And if people attack you, that is it. They do not get to attack you again. Stasis is almost essential for this deck. Now, you might be wondering, like, how do you not die? Well, we got a number of cards that help you not to die. Number one is Platinum Angel. Platinum Angel says you can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game. So if somebody hits you for a lot of damage, you can sacrifice one of your liches and you're not going to lose. Teferi's Protection, somebody swings at you, bye-bye, you Teferi out of there. Solitary Confinement, you can't take damage. And since you're playing Oloro, you're gaining 2 life a turn and you're drawing 3 cards a turn. Discarding a card to keep yourself from taking damage is not that much of an ask. Greater Auramancy will protect your 2 liches that do not have hexproof. Phyrexian Unlife will also keep you from dying, from having 0 or less life, and it'll keep you alive for a couple of turns if people are trying to swing at you. Mirage Mirror has a particularly fun effect. If someone is going to make you sacrifice one of your liches, what you do is you turn your Mirage Mirror into a land, you hold priority, you turn it into your Lich's Mastery. The Lich's Mastery will go away because of the legendary rule, and then the Lich's Mastery that is your Mirage Mirror is going to turn into a land that never technically left the battlefield. You are still alive. Angel's Grace, with your lose the game trigger on the stack, you can Angel's Grace so that you don't die. You can sacrifice your Lich. Time Stop, somebody's going to swing at you and hit you for all that damage. End the turn. Trick Bind, stifle that. The last way you're not going to die is with Solemnity. There are 2 cards in particular in this deck that work with Solemnity. Number 1 is Delaying Shield. Every time you would be dealt damage, instead you put that many counters on Delaying Shield, and then you can pay 1 and a white at the beginning of your next upkeep to keep one of those counters off and fog a damage. But with Solemnity out, you can't put those counters on anyway, so no matter how much people swing at you, they're not going to be able to do any damage. You're going to get to stay alive. Same thing with 9 lives. Anytime something would deal damage to you, you're going to put a counter on 9 lives. Except with Solemnity out, you're not going to put a counter on 9 lives. It's going to sit there and it's going to say, you can't hit me, you can't damage me. I'm just going to sit here and draw cards until I win the game. Now there's a number of cards in here that synergize very well with my liches. Number 1 is Serra Ascendant. Serra Ascendant's just a power play on turn 1 anyways, because it's going to swing for 6 flying and lifelink. And if you can manage to keep your life total up, it's going to draw you 6 cards every single time it connects. Ditto Elixir of Immortality. Pay 2 mana, gain 5 life, but with a Lich you'll be drawing 5 cards? That's a pretty good exchange. Words of Wisdom is another card that has excellent synergy with the Liches. When you are going to draw a card, instead of drawing the card, you will pay a colorless. You will gain 5 life instead. But since you already paid the substitution cost, instead of gaining 5 life, you are going to draw 5 cards. So for 1 mana, you are going to draw 5 cards instead of the 1 you are normally going to draw. Tainted Sigil and Children of Corliss serve the same effect. Somebody hits you for something particularly devastating. You sacrifice these, you gain all your life back. You draw that many cards. Somebody hits you for 12, makes you sacrifice nearly your entire board or get rid of your graveyard or exile most of the cards out of your hand. You sacrifice one of these, you draw them all right back. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Let's put it like this. With Lich's Mastery in play, you cast a Grey Merchant, it comes in, it hits everybody at the table. You gain 15 life and draw 15 cards. With one of the other Liches in play, you'll draw 18 cards off of Gary. Gary's a game ender on his own, but a Gary that draws you 15 cards is even better. Now, ultimately, how do you win the game? We have built 3 ways to win the game into this deck. Number 1 is Approach from the Second Sun. Approach from the Second Sun will win you the game anyways. With a Lich Effect out, it's twice as good because you're going to cast it from your hand. You're going to put it 7 cards to the bottom. You're going to gain 7 life, which means you're going to draw 7 cards. And you're going to put that approach right back in your hand. If you have the mana, you can cast it right again, right there, win the game. Otherwise, wait till your next turn. Win the game on your next turn. Psychosis Crawler, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards because you're gaining life. And you are going to be pinging somebody for 1 every time. If you do nothing but have Lich's Mastery and Oloro out, you're going to be drawing 3 cards every time and bolting somebody every turn. Last but not least, Aetherflux Reservoir. Aetherflux Reservoir, you know what it does. And once again, part of the theme of the deck, it's a card everybody hates. But if you are playing Oloro right and you've been gaining life all along and you've been playing your Gary and your Children of Corliss and your Words of Wisdom and all these cards that prevent you from taking damage, you can probably have enough to dome the rest of the table and win the game. That's my Lich deck. I do have a deck list online. We can see they will share that on the video in the description. That's it. Hope you enjoy it.